Hello and welcome to episode number 145. This is a very special episode because the Elements of Ayurveda podcast is 3 years old on August 17th, 2020. And I chat with our wonderful regular guest, Amy Wheeler, about the podcast, about what's going on personally, and about what's going on globally as well. So please stay tuned. Hello and welcome to Elements of Ayurveda, Empowering Wisdom of Life. I'm your host, Colette, and in this podcast, I hope to empower you to take charge of your own health by sharing the holistic teachings of Ayurveda, the ancient healing tradition from India. We will also discuss topics like health and wellness, nutrition, yoga, fitness, meditation, breath work, and much more, as well as interviewing lots of inspiring people along the way. My humble wish is to help you to connect to your true nature, to Mother Nature, and to each other. If you like the content, be sure to subscribe to the show, and the new episodes will automatically download for you to enjoy. If you're new to Ayurveda, I recommend you listen to the first couple of episodes where I do an introduction to Ayurveda and the mind-body types. I've also set up a Facebook group for us to connect and to support each other, and I'd love for you to join me over at Elements of Ayurveda podcast group. And now here's the show. Hello and welcome to Elements of Ayurveda, and this is a very special episode because this podcast is 3 years old on August 17th, 2020. And to help me celebrate today and chat about the podcast and life and everything is our wonderful regular guest, Amy Wheeler. Hi, Amy.
Hello. Can I sing?
You can.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Colette. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you.
And many more.
Yay. Thank you, Amy, for the little song. I was sitting here clapping, and it reminds me of my little niece, who I'm spending a lot of time with at the moment. I'll tell you all about that soon. But she just learned to clap 2 days ago. So we're clapping. She's just 9 months old and she just learned to clap, and she's the most adorable thing. So I was clapping like my little niece. So yes, I've been doing a lot of clapping and celebrating with my little niece who just learned how to clap. And yeah, it's so exciting. The podcast 3 years old. I started back when I was living in California in August 2017 and just got this inspiration to start the podcast. And I really love doing it. It is a lot of work, but I am learning so much through it. I get to speak to so many amazing people. And then, of course, the study I have to do to make sure my information I'm putting out there is legit and it's, in line with Ayurveda's teachings, and to make sure that I'm putting out quality information out there. I hear from people that they find it informative and helpful. So yeah, I feel good about it. I'm looking forward to the next years ahead.
Yeah, I mean, two things that I just thought of when you said that are, number one, you have the best guests. I mean, not just me, that's not very humble. But what I'm saying is, like, every time I turn around, you have these high level Ayurvedic guests on that I'm just like, damn, how'd she get that one? Woo! Right. It's like a little mini university that you have going on here, which the quality is so high. And then number two, the reason I made the joke about me being a great guest is because your trademark trait that I see throughout your whole podcast is humility. Every time I hear you talk, you are willing to say, I don't know what I don't know, or I'm always learning, or and I think that's the sign of really high intelligence. Honestly, people who recognize that no one person could know it all. No one person is the king or the queen, and that we're all in this together, learning from one another. We don't even know what we don't know. Right. And so that's what I love about you, Colette, is your humility and just your willingness to keep learning.
That touches my heart. Thank you so much. I'm going to come back to the humility, but first of all, I want to talk about the guests. it's amazing how it flows with this podcast. And that's why I feel like I said it before, that I feel this is my dharma to just put this information out there and just have these guests on and give them a platform to share their wisdom and Ayurvedic wisdom, because they just come into my world, and I have never had to stress about guests. I've never had to stress about episodes. It all just flows, and it's just flowing through me, and that's when I feel like and when we all feel like we're on the right path, when something flows. If I thought, when I started out in 2017 of having 3 years of podcast episodes, I started out doing bi-weekly and now I'm doing weekly. If you think ahead, it's like, oh my goodness, how am I going to get that many guests? What am I going to do? But it just flows. Everything about it flows. And I am so grateful of those guests that come and talk to me. And humility comes in here as well, because I always say these professors and Ayurvedic doctors and the people who come on as guests on my podcast are very humble. And I said it before, I think Ayurveda is a very humble science. And that's beautiful. And humility is one of the most important virtues to me. It is something that I think growing up in Ireland is a value that Irish people have and is very important. And I think, you hear that a lot of people are endeared towards Irish people because they have this humility. And I am always open to learning. I'm very curious by nature, and I definitely don't think I know it all. And this is why I want to have these amazing guests on too, because I want to learn more. I'm constantly studying Ayurveda. I'm still in school for Ayurveda. And so I thank you for mentioning humility, because it is very, very important to me. And thank you. That was very heartwarming.
And the older I get, the more I realize that's all that matters, honestly, because the more I mess up, the more I'm an idiot, the more I think I know something. Life just shows me differently. And I think if we all just made that our point, is to walk through life and try to be humble, I think the world would be a much better place.
It sets up a really nice, easy start for a relationship, I find, in any relationship. Because if you're a person who you feel is competitive with you, that sets up with you have your fists up ready, like, oh, I can feel this competitive spirit with this person. And so when someone comes to you with humility and is like, oh, I don't know, but this has been my experience, or whatever language they use, you can drop your barriers, and then you can be more open with each other. In my early days, definitely in my 20s, I was like Miss Independent, don't need your help, can do it all. But when I let my barriers down, I found that my connections were deeper. And then people shared with me. And again, that goes back to that being less competitive and being more humble and going, you know what, I've got this issue, or I'm not too sure, or I'm feeling concerned or scared or whatever.
I completely agree. I've been through the exact same journey as a highly pitta sister. I think you and I have gone through this together. I mean, I remember the first time we met, and I remember thinking, wow, she's cool. And what you told me that day was that you were doing Ayurvedic fitness training. And I was like, whoa, that's amazing. Because I saw so many people getting burnt out through their fitness routines. And, anyway, I remember us meeting and how connected I felt to you, and how you weren't competitive. You truly were there from the moment I laid eyes on you. You truly were there to connect. And I felt that, because you can feel when another woman is competitive, right? And it does put up that barrier, and you're kind of like, oh, this is weird. But I never got that vibe from you.
Oh, good. Yeah, it is very off-putting when you feel. It's very off-putting for me when I feel that competitiveness, or, I can decipher whether it's competitiveness or whether it's someone's insecurity, and the way they're talking is because they feel insecure. I think I can decipher that, but if it's woman being competitive or anybody being competitive, it's very off-putting for me, because I have no interest in competition. I was definitely burnt out from that whole world of, I was doing, a lot of competition, which is why I got burnt out. I've talked about that in the podcast before. And that was, in triathlon and so on. But I was burnt out. And so I totally went against all competition then. I was like, I have no interest in that, no interest in proving myself. And there's such a freedom in that.
Oh, such a freedom.
Yeah. It's like
and that, I did a little blurb about this yesterday on Facebook, that let's just stay focused on our Dharma and what we want to do in this life, and not waste our precious life force energy on any of the distracting, agitating things that we could choose to pay attention to. And I think you're with this podcast, you're very, very dharmic.
Thank you. Yeah, I feel it. I feel that I'm flowing with this podcast, and so I will continue to do it. Yeah, I look forward to the next few years and bringing more and seeing where it goes.
I couldn't love what you're saying more. This idea of so hum, where the chant of so is you allowing the divine to come into you and nourish you, and the hum is what your vessel gives back to the universe in return. I mean, that's really what we're talking about, is Soham.
Yes, absolutely. And so talking about Soham, I have another announcement to share, personal announcement. So I, as you know, have been in France since March 2018, living in the south of France. I actually returned to an area that I had lived in 2014. And I was there during confinement in France, and all was good. We talked during confinement, and I was working away online, and life was as normal pretty much for me. But then towards the end of confinement, there was a few agitations in my building. There was lots of noise from there was a greengrocer downstairs. He had a lot of noisy fridge. I found out a 40-year-old fridge that was creating a lot of noise. I talked to him. He's in his 80s. He's deaf. He doesn't hear it. And it was vibrating to the building anyway. So, that was something that was making living there uncomfortable. There was a lot of cigarette smoke from other people who were there. And then all of a sudden, this was like 2 weeks out of the end of confinement. I was like, what am I doing here? It was like this, these agitations were showing up, and I was like, oh, okay, this is annoying. This is not very comfortable. I had to sleep with noise cancelling headphones. Can you imagine, those big bulky headphones?
Oh my.
Because that noise was consistent overnight. So it sounded like a subway station underneath my building because it was vibrating. And I was like, oh my gosh. Okay. And I'm very noise sensitive. So I was sleeping with these noise cancelling headphones, and then, trying to, rather than let it get to me and stress me out and cause all sorts of aggravation, it's like, okay, what is this here for? Why is this noise and this cigarette smoke that wasn't there before? These people started smoking outside their window during confinement, so I couldn't open my windows and so on. Why is this happening now? That triggered, why am I here? Like, not in the sense of life, but why am I in France? And all of a sudden, it brought up all these questions. And during confinement, I was craving nature. And then all of a sudden, I got this intuition, your time now is to move back to Ireland. It's time to go. And of course, I have been spending a lot more time with my family. I moved back to Europe because I wanted to be closer to my family. And France, I felt like now was a stepping stone. And my mother, I mentioned in another podcast, has dementia. And it was like, it's time to go home and help take care of my mother and be closer to my family. And it was, as with most things in my life, very sudden and very like, this is going to happen.
I just get a little choked up listening to you.
Oh.
I mean, this is your soul talking to you.
Yeah. It
wow.
really felt like that. And I talked to my sister, and I was a bit like, it was a kind of not a scary decision. I was going back home, but it was a big decision because I left home, my hometown, at 17. I went to college in Dublin, and then from there, at 20, I moved to the States. I moved to Boston. Got the green card and went to Boston. So I haven't lived in my home, being with my parents since I was 17. So it's a huge, that's a big decision. But so I was talking to my sister about it. I was like, I'm thinking, and she's like, yes, it'd be amazing to have you back, and so on. And then I talked to my brothers, and yeah, so it all happened very fast. But I have spent a chunk of time staying with my parents the last couple of years since I've been in France. I would go home for a month at a time. And it was very hard leaving the last couple of times with my mum because my sisters and brothers live very close by, but I was concerned, like, how long will she take looking for things? And, I don't want her to worry and so on. So while my sisters and brothers that live close by, they have their own families, so they're busy, and I don't have children. So I was like, you know what? It's time for me to go home and be in the home with my parents and help and be there to support. And, it's part of, I feel, my responsibility, and not only a responsibility, but a pleasure to be able to move. I can move easily. I can work from anywhere. I can do this podcast from anywhere. My work is online. So I'm very grateful that I can move so easily and live and be in my parents' home and really provide the support that they need right now.
Talk about Dharma. My gosh, like really I'm glad you said a responsibility and a pleasure, because there is such joy and freedom that comes from taking on the responsibility that is ours.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's, even though it's hard work and you're like, whoa, I'm going to go home and I'm going to be in a home with my parents, one of whom has dementia. And yet there's this lightness and freedom in saying, yes, I sign up for this willingly and joyfully.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. And, I am very fortunate because I know there's many people out there who would love to have the opportunity to help their parents, but they have families, may not live in the same town, they have job commitments. I am very fortunate to be in this position to take my stuff and just relocate, and it doesn't make any difference to my job or to my life. And in fact, it's a joy now. And I really feel a call back to Ireland and to be closer to family right now. And it's almost like I feel like I've done a circle. I've traveled so many places. I've lived so many places in the States, in Boston. And then I went to France, and then I was Bali, and then I was California, and then back to France. And I feel like I've gone around the world in order to come back to Ireland and really find my connection again.
You get to be closer to nature, which is so soothing for you. But you also told me when you announced this to me a few weeks ago that you have little ones. Your nieces and nephews they're at that really fun age where they're going to love having an auntie around,
Oh, it's amazing. So I have a big family. I have 3 sisters and 2 brothers. And then I have 11 nieces and nephews, and there's another one due at the end of August. So that'll make it 12. And right now I'm on home confinement, right? I have to quarantine for 14 days. So I've seen my parents. I've been here 10 days now. I've seen my parents, but outdoors and with a mask and so on, because I have to be really careful with them after taking a flight and all the rest. But I'm quarantining in my brother's house. They were meant to be away on vacation for 2 weeks and they had to cancel because of COVID. But anyway, we're managing. And they have 2 little ones. One is 4, Georgia, and the other little one is Hazel, who's 9 months, and she is the most kapha baby ever. Big and pudgy, and just when you see her, when you walk into a room, she lights up and she's just like joy of the world. She's just constantly smiling and laughing, and she's the little one who learned how to clap a couple of days ago. So I've just been like spending all my time with them. It's just been amazing.
I just feel this in my body. Like hearing you talk, it's like every cell in my body is smiling right now.
Oh, thank you. I have just been soaking it up since I've been home.
It just, I've watched you bounce from here to there, and I know that, a real yogi has detachment. They have this freedom. They don't need a lot of belongings. They can live anywhere and make themselves happy. And, I feel like you've lived a really simple but high quality life. But I also felt sad, like, oh my gosh, she's out there on her own. So there's something really comforting as your girlfriend to know that you've landed in a place where you're going to be held in a nest with a lot of other people who love you and you love them. And
yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, that's lovely, lovely words. Yeah, I feel that I just feel really nurtured when I'm in Ireland. And, I've spent a lot of time in my life by myself, and I traveled for a year around, from when I left France, I went through Asia and so on by myself. So I've done a lot of things alone, but I feel now, yeah, I just want that family time to be with the kids and see them growing up. And yeah, it's just time. And it's perfect timing because this is the time my parents need me, the most. And they didn't need me before, but now it's just perfect timing. And I think my dad, who, has obviously living with my mom now and is really taken over a lot of roles, I want to make sure that he is, healthy as well, because obviously it's a lot when you're living with someone with dementia. So, so I'm looking forward to supporting him and of course my mom. And, he was so happy when I told him. He was like, I was always wondering, Colette, what you were doing out there by yourself and, to come home now. So it's like, oh. And, I'm a daddy's girl, so it was like I get weak at the knees and all emotional when I talk about my dad. So, yeah.
Aww.
It feels really good. It feels that, it feels nurturing. I'm very happy to be home. And this is where I'm meant to be right now. And, and that's, for me, it's like things change a lot, but right now I'm committed to helping take care of my mom, and it just feels right and it feels good. So that's my big news.
Well, congratulations. That's a beautiful, and can I just go back to one more thing and then I'll move on with you. When that voice from deep inside of you talks to you in the middle of the night and says, it's been decided, you will be moving now. Like, I think a lot of people would ignore that or try to, tell a story around that or try to pretend they didn't hear it. So I love that you listen to that, because these are not easy decisions to make, to just pack all your stuff up and go home, but you listened. And I just want to acknowledge that, because so many of us hear those voices and we don't listen.
Right. Well, I think as well, for me, it's very clear when the voice comes from left field, like literally you get a message from out of nowhere. You haven't been thinking about it. It hasn't been something you've been mulling over or analyzing. And all of a sudden it's like, it's time. And that happens with me. It's like this, maybe it was a thought, oh, I'm moving back to Europe closer to family, in 2018, and France was a stepping stone back to Ireland. But I wasn't mulling over it in lockdown, which you would think it would be the one point I would really be thinking about it. It wasn't in my thoughts during the confinement. It was only when those triggers came up with the cigarette smoke and the noise that's when it was like very clear. I was like, why are all these agitations happening now? At the end, it was the last 2 weeks of confinement, they started happening. And then it was very clear. And like I said, I hadn't been mulling it over in my head. So so that's when I know that it's this intuitive hit, like, okay, this is right. And it feels 100% right, which is nice.
Fantastic.
So tell us what's been going on in your world. I do think that COVID is causing a lot of change for people. And of course, our hearts and thoughts go out to those people who are adversely affected by this, whether it's sickness and death or, jobs. It's a very scary time. We're very fortunate, me and you, Amy, and we have to recognize those people who have been adversely affected and I'm certainly keeping those people in my prayers every day. But tell us what's been going on for you.
I would say I've been having some really deep cleansing happening, both internally to myself, but also in my surroundings. And it wasn't a planned cleansing. It's just something that after sitting quietly for the first 3 months of lockdown, that just kind of has organically happened. And similar to you, it's just this really deep voice within saying, now is the time to let go of all the distractions, all the agitation, all the stuff you don't need, all the heaviness from the 200 books that you own to the 74 coffee mugs to the people who you've been, doing business with that are no longer working for me,
Right.
to even going into Facebook and just not wanting to look at so much hate and negativity and craziness on there. I mean, I'm just, my tolerance at this moment for all this stuff is very low, and I'm clearing it out, creating space. I'm just going to breathe and feel and experience my new spacious inner and outer lives. Mm-hmm. And then I think that spaciousness allows new to come in. I mean, this is what's really interesting to me, is that everybody wants to change, but they don't want to let go of anything that they have. Right. When really it's the opposite. You have to let go and create space for something new to come.
Yeah, so true.
And so I'm just really super comfortable right now. I don't know what the change will be. I don't know what it's going to look like. I don't, I know nothing. But I do know that I have this deep inner voice and urge telling me clear, 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 clear. And that's what I'm doing. I'm following my inner wisdom.
Wonderful. And purging is so cleansing. It's so wonderful. And also, I think it not only physically you're getting rid of stuff, but also emotionally, the emotions that you have attached to those things.
Right. And, I'm kind of I have a lot of kapha, and I tend to be a little bit codependent. Mm-hmm. I want to make everybody happy. I want to please them. I want to be friendly. I want to take care of people. I want to help. And what I came to this realization this week is that I'm spending way too much energy doing that for people who are not returning that favor to me.
Yeah.
And it's not a transactional thing, but it's a prana thing. Like all this prana going out to try to manage, and one might even say control, all the relationships and all the everything. And just realizing, wow, I don't want to spend my life force in management of everyone's reactions and emotions, and no, just you do you, I'll do me. Right. I love you. I want to be in a relationship with you, but you got to take care of you. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to protect your energy, and if it feels like it's being drained or it's not a mutual relationship, that it's a lot of outgoing energy, that you don't want to get to the point where you're resentful of it, and then that just brings up aggravations in you.
And I don't think it's healthy for any of us to take on other people's work.
Yes, so true.
I really think that those of us who have codependent tendencies, we think we're helping, but really we're just pushing back the time for the person to do their work. We're soothing them in a way that doesn't contribute to them long term, because now we're soothing something that they should have just been taking care of.
Yeah, exactly. In the long run, it's not helping.
Right. It's actually a form of violence to not allow them to see who they are and the consequences of their actions and their belief systems. I think we all need to be taking a really hard look at it, at ourselves and our thoughts and our beliefs and the way we're acting in the world and our values. And I don't want to take that opportunity away from anyone, honestly. Yeah. I'm doing that work. They can do it too.
Yeah, it's true. And people have to do it by themselves. I mean, they can, of course, get support, but there has to be a certain level of being uncomfortable in order to take the courageous step to do the work. That's
exactly what I'm saying, is I'm clearing space in my life and allowing other people to feel uncomfortable in theirs.
Yeah.
And we'll see what the consequences are. I mean, it's a little harsh, especially in the times of COVID, knowing that people are making some really interesting choices that affect themselves, their families, and all of humanity. But I can't do it. I can't do anything. They know my opinion, and now it's their choice.
Yeah, it's that little bit of EU stress we talk about, right? You need a little bit of stress. You need a little bit of, agitation, a little bit of feeling uncomfortable in order to make change.
Yeah.
Yeah, so true.
And a surrender to, wow, what is going to happen to us, especially in the United States with COVID, just a surrender to letting whatever's going to happen. I mean, I personally think this fall is going to be very difficult for the United States in terms of COVID, and just allowing the birth to happen. I mean, it's really like a birth where it's painful. You're in labor for days and weeks and months in our case.
Yeah.
And hopefully a baby's going to come and we're going to have this new transformation, this new way of being in the world. And this really difficult time we've all been in will help us to move into that new way of being, just like the birth of a baby.
Yeah, so true. I do think the whole world, of course, has been touched by COVID. The US is particularly having a very hard time with it. And it feels to me, yes, like you're saying, this process of giving labor to something new, but also I feel like we're going through the tapas, the fire of change, and we're all feeling this feeling of being very unsettled, uncertain. Our foundation is very rocky right now, and particularly in the US, and not only just from the health standpoint, but politically, lots of foundations, the schooling foundation, everything is being shaken right now. And so we're all going through this fire of tapas, and what else is there to do but surrender to it, like you said, and to take care of yourself. And you just have to go through this process. It could be for, like you were saying, right into the fall, quite a few more months of this fire of change, of this transition. But I certainly feel that we're going to come out the other side better. But we have gone through so much of this greed in the world, all over the world, this lack of humility, this lack of respect for nature, Mother Nature, that we need to go through this time now of fire a change and really shake us up in order to change our ways.
Yeah, and I think the reason I couldn't let go and surrender into it is because of the tragic consequences for people of color who are, affected by COVID at a much higher rate than, say, a white person, for the people who are undersourced and, financially not making it, which is going to be hundreds of thousands of people. I had a hard time surrendering to the fact that it's going to be a very difficult fall, because I didn't want to see so many people suffering. Yeah. But what I've come to is, instead of feeling bad about that and worrying about that, like, okay, it's happening. What can I do within myself and my community and my way to help those people? I can't help everyone that's going to be tragically affected, but I can go day by day and help this person and that person, and in my little way I can contribute. And I think that's a much better way to use my life force, instead of feeling paralyzed and overwhelmed and disgusted. Like that isn't doing anything. Yeah. It's just wasting my life force. But now that I've just consciously made this decision, I'm delinking from all that. I'm going to do what I can every day within my power to help who I can. And then I'm just going to step back and observe and see what unfolds. And that, it's very freeing, but there's also like a depressing component to that too, right? Yeah,
it is definitely overwhelming right now, but it, like you mentioned, take the little steps every day. We've talked about how in other podcasts, how it's overwhelming and how the daily habits, the dinacharya, are so important. It is just down to taking the little steps to take care of yourself and take care of those around you and the interactions you have in your day-to-day routine. It's so important. And what way can you bring compassion, light, aid to those people around you, instead of thinking of the bigger picture of things, which is way too overwhelming, and we have no idea what's going to happen. So we can't have this massive outlook for the future right now. We just have to take it day by day.
And just make a conscious decision that instead of fighting with people on Facebook, I'm not going to use my energy that way. Right. I'm clearing that out, and here's what I can do. here's all the little ways that can be of service today.
Exactly. And that's what we can do, you know, making sure that your people around you, the people you come into contact with, what way can you help them out?
Because I think it gives people hope, you know, that it somehow they'll make it through this dark tunnel. And we're all going to make it through. I mean, I shouldn't say all. There are many, many people who are going to die. And there will also be people that will make it through. And I think hope is really key right now.
It is. And really being there to listen to others who are having a really hard time, you know, with this right now, and who just need somebody to listen. I know I'm reaching out to a lot of my friends, particularly in the US, who I know are going through a particularly hard time.
And I think another small thing that we can do is just when people are reactive and stressed out and snappy, and to just breathe and take it in, kind of like, you know, Tonglen meditation, where I take in that pain and I breathe out kindness, sweetness, like, okay, I can see they're having a really hard time, and this is so not about me, and therefore today I can take on a little extra of someone else's suffering, and I'm just going to take it off their shoulders, breathe it in, and then kick back some love to them instead of reacting and taking it personally. There's so many people right now, myself included, on some days, that are just haired out.
Yeah. And I think that's really important to remember. If people around you are acting odd or acting irrational, just have lots of compassion right now and take a step back and try not to react. Like you're saying, take a breath, because people are really triggered easily nowadays.
Mm-hmm. So, and also when we're having that kind of day, I mean, I've had a few of those, to have compassion for myself and just say, wow, this feels like a pressure cooker, Amy. You had a hard day, and it's okay.
Yeah, a lot of fire, I feel, at the moment. It's a fiery energy happening right now.
And one more thing I just want to add in here is, I was talking to my friend Marlisa Sullivan, who you know,
yes.
And we were kind of feeling guilty about preparing our fall courses. We're both teaching some anatomy courses in the fall, and how are we going to do it online? And we feel guilty, like, oh my God, the world is blowing up and we're planning anatomy classes. And we just feel weird about it. Like, what is that? But the truth is, those of us who can continue to do our work in the world, whatever, you know, however simple that is, like teaching an anatomy class, that holds some stability energetically for the world. I don't think we should feel guilty that we do have work and we are completing that work. You know, that's creating some stability. And I told her, I said, it's probably not the content of anatomy that's going to help these students in the fall, although it might be, but I thought it's more about the fact that they're going to come and be online with like-minded people and settle into a lesson and have a sense of normalcy for a couple of hours, studying something they love. And that togetherness and that schedule is going to be probably even more important to their mental health than the content of what we're teaching.
Absolutely. And we can't let everything fall apart. If we have the opportunity or are fortunate enough to be able to continue working, we have to, you know, keep that going. And that will flower out to provide support for others. I think it is very strange times, but if we can continue doing our work in the world, it's our responsibility to continue to do that.
Yeah.
And do it while having compassion for others and trying to help others in whatever way we can. But it really is a whole new world. I do still feel positive that we will come out the other side of this with the new ways of looking at things. But we really needed this big shakeup in order for things to change. And let's talk a little bit about, Amy, what you see going forward. Personally, of course, we don't know globally, but maybe you could share personally for yourself. You were talking about you're enjoying in that previous podcast episode that you were enjoying working from home. Now, you know, you're a college professor. Your classes are going to be online in fall. Is that correct?
Yeah, so my school decided back in May because they wanted to give us plenty of time to do it well. And I'm a little bit like, what? It's August and they're just deciding this? How can teachers prepare a school year with 10 days notice? Like, it doesn't make any sense, but I'll let that go because I'm not going to get agitated. Mm-hmm. I'm just grateful that I've had the entire summer to contemplate how to make the online learning experience, not just for my university, but also my yoga therapy school, a meaningful, rich experience, because it can be that online. It doesn't have to be like this horrible substitute. And that's what I'm hearing from my students. It's like, wow, this is amazing. We had no idea it could be this rich. So I'm really putting my focus on how do we create online learning environments that work. And it's been a just overwhelming amount of work to translate everything into the new online setting. But I think this is the future. I mean, when you talk about my future and the future of the world, I think it's going to go towards telehealth, telemedicine. I think yoga therapy is going to be a great online modality, especially those of us that deal with mental health and yoga therapy. It's a perfect, I think Ayurveda has a lot of similar things that can be done online. And I'm kind of excited because I know that a lot of people want the in-person hugs and they want the community. But what they don't know or don't think about is all those people who, for whatever reason, can't be part of a community, don't have transportation or have a delicate nervous system or they are ill. They've been left out in their homes for decades, for centuries. And this new online learning environment allows people who've never been able to be included in a community for whatever reason to become kind of integrated more into what the rest of us have been doing all along. So I'm feeling really excited that things are opening up for people who've been excluded. And, I understand that in a lot of undersourced communities, there are not internet connections, there's not computers. I'm hoping that starts to transform too, that companies and, I know at my university, any student who doesn't have a nice laptop gets a free laptop for 3 years.
Oh, that's amazing.
Anybody who doesn't have proper internet connection, the university has ways to get them that. I mean, the university is paying for all of this. So
that's amazing.
I know that these kids, even though they come mostly from blue-collar families and they don't have high socioeconomic status, they're actually getting to engage in a new way that they wouldn't have been able to before. Yeah. And we have a whole lot more work to do for undersourced communities that aren't getting those resources. But my hope is that corporations will step up and get every school kid in America a decent computer, and that's my hope. Maybe I'm idealistic, but that's what I'm praying for.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah. Well, yeah, I can imagine it's a tough transition for you guys to put everything online in such a short period of time, but hopefully it will open up, like you said, to many more people, and that those people who don't have those resources will be given those resources like laptops and internet connection and so on. So yes, hopefully companies, corporations will step up and help out in that. And, it's going to be big changes. They're talking about, will colleges ever go back to having these big college campuses and so on? So it'll be interesting to see the future of that. For me, it's going to be, obviously family is going to be a big thing right now, which is great. And my work will continue online. With my online offerings, and I'm very excited about the future of the podcast and so on. And my objective is always to use this platform to educate, to inspire, to hold the space for people to come on here and just share knowledge and wisdom and these ancient traditions. And I feel we need these ancient teachings now more than ever in the world. So, I want to provide that platform in my little way. So thank you, Amy, for coming on today and just having this chat. I think, it's just really lovely to connect and to share a little bit about what's going on personally, as well as what's going on in the world, but and chat about that as well. So thank you.
Thank you. And I just want to say happy birthday, number 3, yes. And also congratulations on coming home and just really taking your dharmic mission with joy and responsibility. I admire you so much.
Oh, I appreciate that. And I just said merci, but now it's time to shift to Irish. So I will say Gurav Mila Mahagut, which is Irish for thank you. And I will sign off by saying bye for now, which in Irish or Gaelic is Slán go fóill. And my accent, I will warn you, will probably get a lot thicker over the next few months. I'm going to try to keep it clear, but it probably will get a lot thicker over the next few months. So thank you everybody for sharing this time with us today. And here's to many more podcast episodes to come. Please share your thoughts over on the Elements of Ayurveda podcast Facebook group. I'll put the link in the show notes. And as always, I'll link to Amy's website and my website there. But thank you for supporting the podcast. I truly appreciate it. And Slán go fóill. Bye for now.